Hi there, I'm Chef Laurie. Welcome to my kitchen. And I know you all want to see a great recipe, but before you start to do anything, you really have to work on your knife skills. And I suspect that most of you, the sharpest knife that you have is probably a steak knife. You think it takes you forever to cook? Well, you got to work on your knife skills, and I'm going to do a little bit of that with you today. Basically, buying knives for one thing. First of all, this is your basic French knife. And it may be pink, but it's no sissy knife. I'll tell you that right now. This is very, very sharp. And what you want to look for is a knife that's, kind of fits you. Pick up the knife and hold it in your hand. And when you're holding the knife, you want to kind of choke up on it. You don't want to hold it back here, and you don't want to put your finger on here while you're chopping because you're going to get carpal tunnel syndrome after a while. The other thing you're looking for is notice how the blade goes all the way through the handle in all of these knives here. Okay, that's a really good sign. That's called full tang. That's a very big thing to look for. And one thing not to look for is that there's a lot of really cool knockoffs out there. See how this blade only goes this far? Not a good quality knife. Okay, most importantly, you cut yourself more with a dull knife than you do with a sharp knife. I know that seems crazy, but it's true. And the thing is, you got to work a lot harder. So the way to keep your knives sharp, of course, is a couple of things. Okay, when you're chopping, okay, first of all, we'll keep your fingers bent under. But if you're chopping and you're doing this, hear that scraping noise? That's the #1 way to dull your knife. Try to avoid doing that, even though you see it all the time on television. But try and flip your knife over and scrape this way. Okay. Secondly, we'll do a little chopping in a minute, but sharpening your knives, just to let you know, when you buy knives and they come in a kit and you get this really cool thing, just for the record, this does not sharpen your knife, okay? And I you see people doing this all the time. Really, all this really does is it cleans up the edge of your knife. So if I had to describe your knife, I mean, over time, here's the tip of your knife. See how nice and sharp it is? This is the sharp knife, and as you work with it, let's come down here, cutting a knife, this is beautifully sharp, and as you work with the knife filaments start to separate like this, and it gets very, very dull. So this is kind of zoomed in by 1,000. So what this does, this kind of pushes everything together, but it doesn't sharpen the knife. The only thing that sharpens your knife is a really good sharpener. If you get the stone, that's a really good way to do it, but unless someone shows you how to do it, you're probably going to dull your knife more than sharpen it. And secondly, sorry about this, but don't take your knives to the hardware store to get them sharpened, because you'll bring in your knife like this, and you'll go and pick it up, and it'll be this size, because they put it on a big grinder and they buzz it right down. So what I recommend is actually, I have a really neat, this is from Chef's Choice, and this is great because the thing is, and I'll turn it on real quick, it has a magnet in it, and it's going to hold this knife at the perfect angle, okay? So you just go in and out, back and forth. You do this probably about 4 or 5 times, and you're good to go. And keep it on your counter. If it's right here, you're going to use it. If it's down there all wrapped up, you're probably not going to use it. But if you keep it right here, keep your knife sharp, you're good to go. Last thing is, try not to get your knives in this big kit, because there's so many knives in there that you don't need. I mean, you've got the boning knife and you've got all these different paring knives. Really, what you really need is probably just a good chef knife, okay? And if you like, this is called the Santoku style, which I guess it all depends on what feels good in your hand. A paring knife, basic paring knife, and probably a serrated knife. And the other thing is, you should never have to sharpen your serrated knife. Okay, your serrated knife is for bread, but I know a lot of you use it to cut your tomatoes and everything else because it's the sharpest knife that you have. Okay, try and keep this strictly for bread. Okay, so 3 knives, that'll get you started. Okay, now let's just do some quick knife skills, watching your fingers. Now, if you watch the guys on the Food Network, they're going so fast. They're chopping this stuff so fast it's even impossible to see what they're doing. But really what they're doing is they're not coming up and down to cut things like this. Part of the knife is always on the table. So they're doing this rocking motion. I'm doing it kind of in very slow motion. But as you can watch them, they'll go faster and faster and faster, and then they'll feed the food, and they'll be going like this. Okay, so pretty much that's push through, push through. Okay, now notice my fingers. This is the other thing. A lot of you like to hold it like this. I mean, you know, unless you don't want the tips of your fingers, get them up in there. Get those fingernails right in there. And that knife should be right against your knuckle. As you can see, your fingertips are nowhere inside. And this looks easy for me because I've been doing it for so long, but if you practice, I'm telling you, this is going to speed up your cooking time 10 times faster than what you used to. I mean, what's faster, that or this? You tell me, okay? So practice that. Keep your fingers bent under. Don't scrape your knife. Flip your knife over. Keep your knife sharp, and your cooking time will be cut in half. So those are some knife skills. Any more tips like this? Go to cheflaurie.com.